love this question. So my favorite thing about teaching
Hello, Maddie butting in here right at the beginning. I'm just going to go ahead and warn you guys now because we decided this after she took this footage. This is going to be a 2-part video, so this is going to be part 1. Part 2 will be out next week. This is going to be the first half because there were so many questions, we decided to make it 2 parts. So enjoy.
Hey, what's up you guys? Welcome back to our channel. My name's Kinsey and I'm one half of the sister duo over here. If you're new here, I am a first year, now officially in August, a second year teacher. I teach English and yearbook. Before we get started, I do want to say thank you to all of those who have subscribed to this channel, but Madison and I have been recently looking at our analytics and we can tell that a lot of you are not subscribed that watch our videos consistently. So please, before you get any further into this video, just click the button. Let's go ahead and get onto this video because this intro is longer than it needs to be. I am answering all of your questions and trust me, there's a lot. So when I initially posted this on my Instagram, which if you don't follow it, it's Evans in English. When I did check it the next day, so about 18 hours later, I saw that I had all of these questions and I continued to get them. Here's a quick disclaimer. Some of these questions are similar, so you may see multiple variations of them pop up at the same time, and I'm just going to go into them as if I'm answering all of them at once. Handboard asked student teaching tips. I got a few variations of this. So my ultimate student teaching tip, which as soon as it comes out of my mouth, you may have a mini heart attack, but let me explain, is to go in with the expectation that you will fail. And I don't mean 100% fail. I don't mean that it's going to be a terrible experience. I mean that there are going to be moments, especially for me as a perfectionist, this was hard to understand and accept, but there will be moments that you fail. Whether it's a tiny fail, whether it's one that people don't even notice, whether it's a really big one. Student teaching is all about learning. For example, I did a yoga lesson, which was pairing, obviously, yoga poses and discussion questions, and while they were in the pose, they had to think about what they would respond with, and when they got out of the pose, they would respond. This was a really great activity. This is one I'll be using in the future, but my first trial run of it was absolutely terrible. It was windy, the papers were flying everywhere, the kids couldn't hear me because of where we were sitting. It was an ultimate fail. But the cool thing was I realized that the kids really enjoyed it, and it was a cool way to get kids who are typically quiet to reach out and start to talk in a discussion. Things like that will happen, and you just have to go in knowing there will be times when I fail, but that's the exciting part because then I don't have to fail by myself when I'm in my classroom alone. Joanne Pick XX asked, I would love to start making my own resources. Where do you even begin? Can you help? Of course I can help. I get this question a lot. How do I make my resources? I make my resources using the Canva software. I used the free version for 2 years. So I used it my full senior year in college and then my first full year teaching. I suggest that 100%. I don't think you need to buy the pro. However, in the last month, I have bought the pro just to save myself time. Everything on the pro, if you take the time, you can create using the free version. At this point in my life as a 23-year-old, I'm just shocked I didn't do it sooner. I have a lot of things to do and I don't have time to sit and make my very own realistic iPhone when I can just tap the pro version and put it in my resource. So that's just where I'm sitting at right now, and if that's you and you're just not creative or you don't have the time, it's $12.95 a month. It's the same as Amazon Prime. Go ahead and purchase it. But if you are wondering, well, am I missing out if I don't have the pro? No, you're just spending more time and you need to be more creative. In terms of where do you begin, this process is something that I'll probably go into detail in another video. But basically what I do is sit down and brainstorm for about an hour depending on what unit I'm starting or what activity I'm trying to do, and I'll write down everything that comes to mind. How can I engage them? What are they interested in? What's the current time period? Are we working with Halloween? Are we working with homecoming? You know, things like that. And then what are my goals? What am I trying to get them to learn, and how do I want them to get there? I throw all of that information on a Canva page or whatever design I'm creating, and then organize it and format it later. So I worry about the really cute details and pictures and images later. If anybody else would like a video from start to finish to watch me create a resource, I would love to create that for you. Rebecca Hinchliff01 asked, what are your tips on behavior management? So my tips for behavior management are quite simple. Again, I did do a longer video on this in the car with my classroom management Drive With Me. In that video, what I go into detail about are setting expectations that you plan to follow through with and not fighting battles that are quite frankly not worth fighting. So for example, some teachers are very specific on students cannot get up and sharpen their pencil while they're teaching. I alleviate this situation altogether by having pencils that are sharpened. However, I do not fight small battles. Them going to the bathroom once per 9 weeks is not something I'm fighting nor keeping up with. So don't set expectations that you don't plan to enforce. Those small battles are really about something else, and it's really just showing a power struggle. It's not worth the pencil. It's not worth the bathroom pass. My ultimate tip is don't take it personally. If you want some more detailed information, go ahead and head over to that video after you watched this video. Magdalena_Yulreich, she asked, what is your favorite thing about teaching and how do you teach literature creatively? I love this question. So my favorite thing about teaching is creating educational experiences that change students' minds on what education looks like. I like to make activities and projects and outdoor field trips and indoor field trips and scavenger hunts and escape rooms that make students realize that education doesn't have to be what they've seen it in the past. And I'm not attempting to negate what other teachers have done or the ways that other teachers have taught. I'm just trying to show them that education can be a really fun experience if both they and I put the work in. And then your second question was, how do you teach literature creatively? I think I teach literature creatively by prioritizing student interest first. So when I'm doing that brainstorming part of creating lessons or creating activities or creating resources, I prioritize what the students are interested in, whether it's, are we going through homecoming? Is there a holiday coming up? All of their student interests are what I prioritize before I even engage in some sort of activity. Do they, as a group, because each class is differently, do they like group activities? Yes, awesome, we're gonna do this in first block. Some teachers say, well, I do that, but I still can't get them engaged. That might mean that you don't know their interests, because first block's interests are different than second block's interests. Really, to teach literature creatively, you have to invest in the interests of your students. You have to know them, and that doesn't mean you have to spend weeks knowing them and weeks of lessons that they're not engaged in. You can do it the very first day. You can look over it through that first planning or through that first night and start to accommodate as needed, if that makes sense. Harry the Schnauzer 1 asked, how do you build relationships or friendships with students while still remaining professional? Super important question, especially one that I get a lot because 1, I'm young, 2, I teach at the high school level and had seniors my first semester, and 3, I have social media accounts that the kids do follow. I think the idea of professionalism is changing, and I don't mean that in a radical sense. I'm not saying that you should be your students' friends by any means. I do think that the parameters of what was considered professional before have to change because of the introduction of social media. Making very clear boundaries of the purpose of the things that you're doing. So if you invite them to have lunch with you, which is an option we can do, so that way they're not in the cafeteria, because
now kids don't want to eat in the cafeteria, I don't understand.
Letting them know, like, this is a privilege and these are the expectations and this is why I'm letting you do that. Or with your social media accounts, this is the reason for our social media accounts. We're celebrating you, we're showing off your work. These are the things that I will do on this account, and these are the things that I won't do. Which is something I kind of struggled with. I didn't communicate the expectations even though I had them and I knew what they were. And you have to do that regularly because students have multiple teachers. In some districts at the high school level, they have 6 or 7 teachers because they're not on the 4-block schedule. Something you have to keep in mind. And if you're at the elementary grades, it is a little bit easier because they're not as invested in your outside life. Something else I would suggest, which is what I'm gonna do next year, is having those expectations posted, whether it is on the social media accounts or in the classroom. I do need to have them posted. You really need to have them posted. It was literally the #1 rule when I was going through teacher prep, and I didn't do that. Perry the Schnauzer also asked tips for parent communication and interactions. I have had amazing parent interactions. I have had terrible parent interactions. So what I do every week, which I kind of got shade for, like the first couple of weeks that I did it at my new school, but I sent out every week a newsletter that updated the parents on, very briefly, it wasn't super detailed, it didn't take me an hour to do, but I just pulled from my weekly plans that the students get to see, very basic things about what we did, a highlight from our week, and then grades that they could expect. And parents really appreciated that. Very rarely did I hear back from them, but if I did post that a grade was going in and then a grade was wrong, the parent knew to contact me immediately. So I had really great parent communication in that way. Sometimes you will have very irate parents that come in thinking that one thing happened because their teenager told them it did. And what I can suggest for you is to always have a very good paper trail. So if it's a behavior issue, always recording that. If it is a grading issue, always keeping up with those things, which I personally do not hand things back. Whether it's behavior or grades, make sure that you have some sort of paper trail running for that. And then also be on the proactive side, just like with my classroom management, contact them first, draft up an email that tells them what their kids did that week. That lets them be involved. And at the high school level, parents aren't really involved as much because their kids don't want them to be. It's not cool for their parents to be at things. So when you as the teacher reach out and say, hey, your kid did this week, it gives them the opportunity to talk to their student about it.
I'm back and noticing just how washed out I am. So I would like to think I'm a good editor, but I am not such a good editor that I can make this a very smooth transition into part 2 with the footage that I've got. So I'm just gonna cut it right here and tell you guys to make sure to tune in next week for part 2. We're going to finish answering up, well, Kenzie's going to finish, I think I just had a stroke. Kenzie's going to finish answering up y'all's questions. Yeah, I think that's it. Make sure to follow us on our socials, and we'll see you guys next week. Oh yeah, make sure to subscribe so you don't have to come back and keep checking for part 2. You'll just know when it goes up. It'll pop up in your subscription box. Trust me, you're not going to regret it. Just subscribe. It'll make it so much easier. Also, bonus, when we hit 2,000 subscribers, Kenzie's going to be doing a giveaway. Hopefully you guys remember that. And yeah, see you guys next week. Bye.
My hair's freaking ridiculously long. Can I go ahead and get married? Press the button. Whatever. Anyway.